During my school days, I would hear teachers say this a lot. The bell doesn't dismiss you, I dismiss you. I've always hated this shit because I don't care about your fucking inflated ego that makes you think I owe you my time after that bell rings. Once that bell rings, that's it. I have another class to go to taught by another teacher that is not you. I've had my fill of you for the day, sayonara, and it is always the most nasty piece of shit teachers who say this shit, at least in my experience. The cool teachers never kept me after class. Well, one, they never had any reason to, and also, they just seem to respect the schedules of students more than those other teachers who, again, think you owe them a second of your time after their class officially ends. Now, if the student is actually acting up in your class and you want to keep them after class to discuss their behavior with them, fine. That individual student was acting like a shithead, so it is more than fair to inconvenience and punish them. But keeping the entire class after the bell rings, even if it wasn't the whole class acting up and it was just a select few fucking idiots, that's bullshit. Are you gonna fucking bail me out if I get in trouble in my next class for being late because I had to sit and listen to you scream at other students for misbehaving while I was perfectly behaved in your class? More than likely not. I have another class to go to. Why do I have to stick around and listen to you lecture morons who can't behave properly when I didn't do anything wrong? You don't know what's going on in my next class. I gotta have a test that I need to take, and I think that supersedes having to listen to your voice longer than I should. And it's not like keeping the entire class after the bell rings turns around the bad behavior of the students acting out. At least it didn't for the students who acted out when I was going to school. Inconveniencing the other students who did nothing wrong did fucking zero when it came to changing their behavior. I remember my government and economics teacher back in senior year. Yes, I'm talking about this guy again. He just kind of encompassed everything I fucking hate about shitty teachers. Anyway, I remember he would do this a lot at the end of his classes. Even if just a few students were acting out throughout the period, that bell rung, he'd be like, oh hell no, you're not going anywhere. And then he would proceed to scold the students for a few minutes. And this was especially irritating for me because the class I had right after his was my AP English class. Literally the most important class I was taking that year. And I was late to this class multiple times, not because it was my fault, but because this douchebag teacher always loved scolding not only the students who were actually misbehaving in his class, but also the students who did fucking nothing wrong. I remember one time there was a big argument between multiple students in that class, and it had something to do with the topic we were being taught that day. I forget what it was exactly. It got really out of hand very fast because these were dipshit high school students arguing politics, so it went about exactly as you think it did. This class ended with the bell ringing, the teacher saying, absolutely not, you're not going anywhere, and then he proceeded to scream at all of us at the top of his lungs about how immature we are, how we need to grow up. It was probably the angriest I've ever seen him. And I was just rolling my eyes the entire time thinking, what fucking lesson am I learning here? I didn't engage in the shouting match between these students. I was silent during the entire period, so why should these students who are completely incapable of having a measured discussion about politics be my goddamn problem? And why does it need to take away time from my honors class? Thankfully, there were like 2 other students who were in my previous class who also went to my next class, so I wasn't the only one who was periodically late. And thankfully, the days where this teacher decided to keep us after the bell were never days where I had to write an essay or take a test in my next class. And also, thank God, my AP English teacher was very nice and very understanding, easily my favorite teacher I had that year. That class in general was a nice 180 from the class I had right before. The teacher was really nice and cool, the students were super chill. That was the good thing about my English class directly following that fucking awful class. But anyways, if a student or a group of students are repeatedly disrupting your class and you want to keep them after the bell to yell at them, again, fine, that is more than fair. I just don't see the fucking point in keeping all of the other students who did nothing wrong throughout your class, inconveniencing them and potentially getting them in trouble with the teacher in their next class, all because they just had to listen to you scream about something they had no involvement in. At that point, I have to wonder, is it an ego thing? Do you just get off on the power you might feel keeping the whole class after the bell and screaming at them, even at those who did nothing wrong, all because you want to feel like you have control over as many students as possible? There I go, playing armchair psychologist, but you know what? This is my headcanon. This all ties back to when I ranted about teachers who unfairly punish the whole class, even if just a select few students were misbehaving. Acknowledge the students who actually behave and don't act like morons in your class, because if you don't and you still unfairly punish them, what is even the point in behaving in your class if you're still going to punish and scream at those who did nothing wrong in your class? It makes no goddamn sense. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Bye-bye.